Our Secretary General is also here now, Aloysius. So please bear with us while we wait for the others. I think in 3 minutes from now, we will begin the webinar. We also welcome Kanchana Sopan from Caritas Bangladesh. Cambodia, sorry. Christine Wong has joined us also, Caritas Singapore, thank you. I think I haven't mentioned Charles Bertil yet of Caritas Myanmar. We have Emmanuel Biswas from Caritas Bangladesh. Dr. Edward Palab Rosario also from Caritas Bangladesh. Father Guido Trizani, welcome and belated happy Kazakhstan.
Already coming, no? We have to give the okay.
Welcome Anita Rosario from Caritas Bangladesh. Father Lalit Pudu of Caritas Nepal. Pinto, welcome. Caritas Bangladesh as well.
Good afternoon, Za. Well, Charles.
Good afternoon, Charles. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
We're just waiting for the others to log in and we'll begin soon. Dr. Wintunchi, our National Director of KNSS, will be the one hosting us or facilitating us for this webinar. Dr. Richard, you might want to turn on your camera now.
Shall we start, Za?
Okay, we have now 32 participants. We're expecting 50 participants. So can we have another minute to wait for the others, Dr. Richard? I hope this is okay also with the others.
Sure.
Mr. Linus Nang of Caritas Singapore is also here now. Welcome, Linus. Thank you.
Online ada juga.
Ini saya baru kirim ke Romo WA-nya.
Oh, sehat-sehat ya?
We are also joined, of course, by our communications officers from Asia, CI, who helped us in organizing this event.
Saya sudah email tadi ya.
We have Anita of Caritas Singapore. We have Mira of CI.
Kasih penjelasan ke
Pascoro of Caritas
Aryo alasannya ya.
Indonesia. And I hope I'm seeing the others. Emmanuel and Kanchana and Father Guido, I think, are also part of the communications team who helped us with this, organizing this webinar. So I acknowledge them as well here. I think we're ready, Dr. Richard. Ari, are we okay? Are we okay to start?
Yes, sir. We can start.
Father Edwin Garrigas is also here. Sorry, I think I did not acknowledge him earlier.
I greeted you.
One of our speakers, Father Edwin Garrigas. Sorry, Father.
Shall we start, Za?
we're just starting now. Mark De Silva of CRS, thank you for joining us. Yes, please, Dr. Richard, we can start.
So good afternoon, everybody from Caritas Asia regional webinar. We're going to share the experience of Caritas Asia and Caritas families on our COVID response in Asia region, and also supported by the experience from the Caritas Internationalis. Remarkably, today is the World Humanitarian Day. So while we are sharing our COVID response experience, we believe that it's ways of supporting and advocating and promoting the agenda of the humanitarian issues around the world in this very auspicious World Humanitarian Day. I would like to briefly share with you the flow of this webinar, which we organized for 2 hours. So first of all, you will be hearing the spiritual inspiration from Caritas Internationalis President, His Excellency Luis Antonio Cardinal Tagle. And after this video messages, we will be hearing from Mr. Aloysius John, Caritas Internationalis General Secretary. He will be sharing about more of the institutional perspective of this COVID response. Afterwards, we'll be hearing the most interesting part of this webinar is hearing the sharing from the 3 panelists, Mr. Ranjan Francis Rosario from Caritas Bangladesh, Father Edwin Carigues from Caritas Philippines, and Ms. Susanna Kalek from Caritas Internationalis. They will be the main part of the webinar where the panelists will be asked some guiding questions, and they will be responding through their experiences. And at the same time, while they are responding to the questions, I would like to encourage the audience to send your questions through the chat box. So the administrative team at the back will be coordinating to get those questions organized, and then we will pass on those questions to the panelists and they will be responding. Unlike in any other webinars, I think it will be more of the interactive sort of the interview processes. While panelists are speaking, answering to key guiding questions, they will also be entertaining the question from the audience from the floor as well. So there will be no separate Q&A discussion session. While they're talking, they will be at the same time entertaining the question from the audience as well. And of course, they will be cross-pollinating among themselves so that it will be more of the informal, more lively webinar that we are framing. After we have good enough time to capture all the questions among themselves and the questions and comments from the audience, and we will conclude these sessions with the conclusion note and closing note by Dr. Benedict De Rosario, who is the president of the Caritas Asia region. So before we start, as a logistic, I think I would like to request all the participants, if you are not speaking, so please mute your microphone. And being a big audience, I think it might be a little bit difficult for us to receive questions directly from the audience. So I would like to request to send your questions through the chat box so that our administrative team will collect all the questions and pass it on to the panel members. So without further ado, I would like to share with the spiritual inspiration from Cardinal Tagle, a Caritas Internationalis president. Ari, can you please open the video message from Cardinal Tagle?
There's no sound, Ari.
You cannot hear the voice, Ari.
Hello, my dear friends. Greetings from Rome, from the Filipino College here in Rome, where I am currently residing. Thank you for the time that you are devoting to this webinar. And I would like to greet Dr. Alo and Zar and all of you wonderful members of the Caritas Asia region. I know that on this celebration of the World Humanitarian Day, you have decided to come together, even through live streaming, in order to celebrate the mission that we have received. I know you are probably quite tired also addressing not only the concerns related to the COVID-19 pandemic, but the other many concerns that have been present and will probably continue to be present, or hopefully not, but might get worse because of the pandemic. But first of all, I would like to thank you for the wonderful work that you have been rendering. You know for a fact that Caritas Internationalis is part of the COVID-19 task force that the Holy Father has set up within the dicastery for the promotion of integral human development. And thank you for our unique contribution. But I would like to encourage you, dear brothers and sisters in Caritas Asia. This is not just work. As Zar wrote to me, he said, this is a spirituality. This is living out the gospel. Our response in this pandemic and in all the other emergencies and all the other disasters, and our collaboration with those who are responding in other parts of the world. This is our way of following Jesus. It is a spirituality. There, we are proclaiming to the world, at stake here are human beings, human lives. And we value every human life because each is God. Each bears the image and likeness of God. And this is the root of the dignity of each person. We value every person because every person is a brother, a sister of Jesus Christ, for whom he offered his life, for whom he offered his body, his blood, for whom he cried, for whom he died, and for whom he rose again from the dead, to share his victory over sin and death and evil. And we believe that every human being is an instrument of the Holy Spirit in recreating the world and society. My dear brothers and sisters in Caritas Asia, when you get tired, or when you become happy because of some wonderful things that we're able to do, please remember, ours is not just a function. Ours is not just a task. Ours is a spirituality, celebrating the beauty of the human person and the duty, the obligation, the mission to care for every human life, to promote what is good for every human person, for the good of every human being redounds to the good of society. So even if I could not join you live during this meeting, I promise to be with you in prayer and in communion with our response in mission. And let me repeat it. Ours is not just a task. It is a mission and the living out of a spirituality. May many more people see the face of God and the true face of the church through you. So, warm greetings to all of you. Please take care of yourselves and let us pray for each other. God bless you.
Gary, thank you for sharing very deep spiritual inspiration from Cardinal Tagle, so which encouraging us. This is not a walk. This is more than a job. This is a spirituality. After spiritual inspiration by our Cardinal Tagle, I would like to call upon Mr. Aloysius John, Caritas International General Secretary, to share your institutional perspective to this COVID response. Aloysius, could you please share your institutional perspective? Welcome.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Richard. Warm greetings from the Vatican to Dr. Ado, President of Caritas Asia, to Za, the Secretary General of Caritas Asia, and also to the different colleagues present at this webinar in Asia. It is my pleasure to address you on this occasion, on the occasion of this webinar, to reflect on the COVID-19 response in Asia. This reflection is timely and appropriate because today is also the World Humanitarian Day, as it was said earlier. During the first quarter of 2020, the whole world turned viral and COVID-19 was declared a pandemic. A major disaster was being predicted and the international community was taking drastic measures to contain the spread of the virus. The first quarter was also a period of paradox, solidarity among the communities to fight against the pandemic, and at the same time, self-isolation of the nations to protect the citizens. The virus was a threat to everybody. The global economy was affected. Economical exchanges came to a halt, resulting in a recession in the north and consequently affecting the global south. People working in the informal sectors started to lose their livelihoods, their jobs, and the poor families were faced with difficulty even to buy food due to lack of means. Schools were closed and children were remaining at home. It is in this context of uncertainty that the Holy Father wanted the Dicastery of Integral Human Development and Caritas Internationalis to respond to the effects of the pandemic through Caritas. Pope Francis said, "Today we are before a major crisis and everybody is affected. I want the Church to be present at this moment of dire need as a symbol of hope, care, and attention to those who are suffering. We cannot solve all the problems," he said. "It is too immense, but we can, through solidarity, manifest the presence of the Mother Church through the symbolic action of solidarity as expression of love for the sufferings. Then others will follow," he said. During the course of these two meetings we had with His Holiness, he made it very clear that this action must be entrusted to Caritas and the local church must be helped to implement small projects in favor of the poorest. Caritas and the local church must be helped to implement small projects, he said, and he concluded, if the church does not bring this response, who else will do it? He said, be agile and act now. In Asia, you, Caritas members, committed yourselves with determination to undertake this mission. It is in line with these reflections, a COVID-19 response fund was created with the sole aim of identifying projects that would go in the way of putting in place small symbolic projects or activities by bringing immediate help to the poorest. As on today, more than 25 projects have been supported and many are pending now for pending funding to be supported, and hundreds and thousands of people have been helped in different parts of the world. Bilaterally, the members of the Confederation have funded more than 12 million worth of projects. So the Confederation has fulfilled its, the entrusted mission effectively and Caritas Asia has stood up to the expectations of the Holy Father to witness the love of the Mother Church to each and every one without distinction of religion or other differences. In different Caritas, bishops, priests, and religious workers, and Caritas workers and community leaders worked with determination to save lives through awareness building, giving life-saving advices, food aid, hygiene kits, and medical aid to the poorest. Caritas was in the forefront, bringing valuable help to the poorest, especially in Asia. Now, the biggest challenge is, how is the new beginning going to be? Pope Francis told us very clearly, the future will not be the same. We must think the future today, he said. And this is one of the tasks he entrusted to the dicastery with whom we are working on. We need to rethink, reimagine, and restart the humanitarian work in the new context. And the new future will not be the same as in the past. I don't think it will be business as usual. The challenge that lies ahead of us is how we are going to empower the members in the Global South so that they become actors of life-saving activities in the front line when disasters happen, and also in the development programs, in order to ensure the promotion of integral human development. This will certainly bring us to redefine and reimagine fraternal cooperation, and with the new methods, new ways of envisaging the relation and partnership with the funding MOs, and also MOs which are receiving funds from the northern member organizations. I hope, based on the effective and efficient way you responded to COVID-19 pandemic, you'll be able to raise the reflection to the institution level in order to see how this momentum achieved in terms of implementing the projects could be maintained, and the capacity of the member organizations in Asia be enhanced to undertake action in an efficient way in the future. I think this must be a real priority. I wish you all success in this webinar and in all your reflections. And thank you once again for having given me this opportunity to be in your midst, at least through the internet. And thank you once again for the good work which Caritas Asia has done till now. Thank you.
Thank you, Aloysius. Thank you for sharing how the Caritas Confederation member has been collectively respond to the situation with the fraternal guidance from our Holy Father. I think it is very inspiring to hear your broader sharing. So now we would like to go to the sessions, I think, or we'll be hearing the real practical experiences of how the Caritas members, family members are responding to this COVID response. So now we will be inviting all three panel speakers to share their experience, how they have been working, responding, and experiencing in this very unexpected pandemic COVID-19 response. So as to reiterate my earlier logistic sort of the announcements, it will be more of the interactive discussions. So I will be asking some questions to the panelists, and panelists will be answering to those questions. While they are answering, I would like to request and encourage the audience to send your questions through the chat box to our administrative team. Then administrative team will forward this question to us, and we will refer it on the table of the panel speaker, and they will be getting back to you. So thank you so much. So let's proceed to the panel speaker sessions. So I wanted to start with one question, very first question, and we heard in Aloysius, we heard in Cardinal Tagle mentioning that it has been a very deep spirituality, and we respond to it. Pope has been really sharing, especially in Pope Francis' holy messages. He encourages us to love creatively to the most needy and suffering people. So as a Caritas Confederation visions is the building a civilization of love. Can you, the panelists, share your experience of realizing these visions into the action during this COVID-19 response? So I would like to invite Susanna to start sharing your experience, and then afterwards, I think I will be inviting other panel speakers. Susanna, please.
Thank you, Dr. Richard. Good morning or good afternoon to all of you. It's always a pleasure to be able to interact with our colleagues from Asia and abroad as well. I would like just to maybe recall 2 or 3 very important elements that we have seen in terms of how creative, how quick, how agile, and how flexible our Caritas all over the world have been in terms of responding to the COVID emergencies. What I can say is that there hasn't been one member out of the 162 who didn't put up a response to this global health emergency as well. And this has taken all different shapes and forms based really on what each Caritas has identified as the most prominent and the most urgent need to be tackled in their communities. What we have seen is that in terms of ability to respond, even before guidance in terms of how can you safely deliver assistance and everything, all Caritas is looking at what the national directives were, have engaged in adapting the program and their responses so that they can continue to provide very important, life-saving, urgent assistance to the people they serve. What we have seen as well, it has been that from the very beginning, a very prominent, a very appropriate, very targeted messaging and awareness-raising campaigns have been put in place all over the world, using all of the available ways of communication, from Catholic radios, from posters, from messaging, and looking at this, making it really relevant and easily understandable for all the communities that we were serving, particularly those in the most remote areas as well. For this, they have been helped also by the great experience that most of us have in responding to different type of emergencies. I'm mentioning just Ebola as well, where we have seen that the ability of the great element of preventing, and so lowering the risk of contagion and casualties, was built on the fact of having good information in terms of what the disease is, how can you better protect yourself. In terms of, Aloysius was just mentioning, the great support that we have received and how we have put in action the words of Pope Francis by working with the Dicastery of Integral Human Development in setting up a COVID-19 response fund. This fund, which was providing not really massive financial help, has however allowed our Caritas members to quickly be responsive on the needs. And one of the things that we have seen have been certain trends that we were able then to share with the broader global communities in saying what are the needs that we are seeing the most. And one was that there has been a great number of new vulnerable people, those that were the daily laborers, those that have been left out of work and with that, because of the lockdown, were not able to provide for their daily subsistence, which were becoming the new clients of our Caritas responses. And this has been shared broadly and influenced a lot of also advocacy and lobbying campaigns, as well as also the development of the Global Response Humanitarian Plan in terms of how funds should be allocated as well. 2, and this is where I'm finishing, 3 actually points that have been particularly interested in terms of ability to respond, which was the fact that we have a very, very strong grassroots network, thanks to our parishes, was something that allows us that even if a national Caritas was not able, the staff to go to reach, assess, provide assistance, the parishes became extremely active and engaged and attract an even larger number of volunteers to provide this type of assistance. The second was the creativity in terms of creating new programs, which were allowing, even when there was not the possibility of face-to-face meeting, to stay in touch with the people we said, identify new ones that are in need of greater support. And so we were seeing great hotlines being put in place, other type of activities all over the world, from Mexico, neighborhood support programs to Fiji, other type of assistance that they have provided. And the third, which was also very interesting, was the ability how these small funds that were provided through the Caritas COVID response fund were being able to leverage greater assistance, particularly from local businesses, from the private sector, like my colleague, Dr. Rosario, is going to speak the great work that they have done in Bangladesh with the private sector, with restaurant sector, or in the Philippines through their kindness sessions as well. Overall, I have to say it has been, and it is a remarkable response that Caritas has put in place in COVID, and looking also at expanding it and continuing, particularly in those areas where you have multiple humanitarian crises going on, or where we are operating in an extremely challenging both political or economic situations. I'll stop here, and I'm happy to receive any questions in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. Thank you for sharing from the global perspective how Caritas members and churches responding down to the parish level, and with the limited resources, we do a great job, I think. Thank you so much for capturing that global picture. Now I wanted to go more deeper into the ground reality. I would like to invite Ranjan from Caritas Bangladesh. So can you please share how the visions of the Caritas really put into actions in the COVID response? Ranjan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Richard. Actually, none of us were ready for such a pandemic situation in the world. In Bangladesh, we were never ready for such a crisis. So whenever the coronavirus was spreading, whenever the lockdown was started in Bangladesh, we, the Caritas directors, with the senior staff members of Caritas, were really disappointed. What shall we do? How shall we stand by the people? So we are thinking, and we started our online meetings with the directors, all diocesan directors, central directors. So we were having repeated meetings, what to do, how to do. Then we organized meetings with our funding partners. So we invited all our funding partners to consult what can be done, how can be done, and how the fund could be arranged. So in that situation, our funding partners, they came forward. They allowed us to spend money from the ongoing projects. The awareness budgets were allowed to be spent from our ongoing projects, and they have extended funding support additionally. So the funding support was ensured from the ongoing projects as well as from our funding partners. One point. The second point is that our regional directors, our managers, they were very much curious and proactive to work for the people. So it was a lockdown situation. There were many problems with the mobility. Still, our frontline staff members, they have started to work for the people because they had no income, because they had no food as there was no income. So we had to go forward to help them. So many of our frontline staff members, they came forward, and with risk, they have gone to the field to help our people. So we supported the people with cash support, cash support, and food support. So immediately, thousands of people were benefited out of our cash support. And thirdly, in this lockdown situation, we are thinking, how could we help the people? How could we communicate the people? So what we did, we allowed all staff members additional allowance for mobile data, mobile flexi. So every day they used to give message to our group members, to our volunteers, so that they can spread the messages about social distance, about using of mask, about cleanliness. So this way, we tried to keep in contact with our primary stakeholders, group members. And fourth, we have hundreds of volunteers in the field, community volunteers. So we had our contact with them, and the volunteers used to disseminate the message among the members. This way, in the risk situation, we try to be with the people. Thank you very much, Dr. Richard.
Thank you, Rajan. Thank you so much. It was very remarkable. In this very difficult situation, you can mobilize your existing resources, and then your Caritas Bangladesh staff members can really reach out to the needy people in the very early phase of the lockdown period. And then I'm also interested to hear about how volunteers are working. I will come back to you with the volunteer with another question, but I would like to call upon Father Edu, based on your Caritas Philippines experience. I think Philippines is one of the hardest hit country in Southeast Asia region. So how do you respond to this COVID situation?
Noise on.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello, Father Edu. Yes.
Can you repeat the question again? Sorry.
Oh, yeah. In Caritas Philippines was one of the hardest hit countries in Southeast Asian countries in terms of the COVID cases. So in this very challenging situation, how Caritas Philippines has been responding to the situation? Thank you.
Before I proceed with my sharing, I think I would like to clarify my status, because most of you, I think, you know that I already resigned from my post as Executive Secretary of Caritas Philippines, and we have here my successor, Father Tony. But the Regional Commission requested me to continue on working for our working group on regionalization, localization. So this is the reason why I'm still here, and I will continue to be with you, I think, for the region. Going back to the question of how are we able to really lead the challenge of Pope Francis to build the civilization of love in the context of our COVID response, I think I would have to use my presentation later on. But initially, I think for most of us, I think that we are always at the service mode in Caritas. Building a civilization of love, as Pope Francis challenged us to do, is always part of our mission. And as Cardinal Tagle already underlined, this is not just part of our work. This is our mission. This is our spirituality, very much inherent in the way we operate in Caritas. And just like many of you, we call that in many terms. We call that a social mission, ministry of service, integral human development. In the Philippines, we call this our mission of helping the poor as alay kapwa. Literally helping or assisting or giving something to your neighbor. So this kind of mission spirituality had been very much part of our existence, with COVID or without COVID. We are always in this mode of trying to transform our faith into action. But COVID is totally different because we have always been at the forefront of development work, poor advocacy, you name it, emergency response in India, Bangladesh, floods, volcanic eruption in Indonesia, and in all parts of Asia, actually. But pandemic is totally, as you said, it's a major crisis, even in terms of impact. It's global, and many of the poorest sectors are really affected. Many lost their jobs, and the total disruption of economic activities due to lockdown is really paralyzing, even in the work we do. How do we, in these challenging times, as Susanna also mentioned, this is a very challenging times. And the question is, how do we continue this ministry of loving service for the poor? When there's no sufficient fund available, our resources are scarce. Everybody, all countries are needing funds actually. We concentrated our response fund for Africa and Middle East. How about the rest? Well, also in terms of operation, our mobility is restricted. We are in a way paralyzed. This is not the usual situation that we find ourselves into. As Rajat also mentioned, we are not prepared for this. We live in a situation that the business community would describe as volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And the question is, how do we, as Caritas, continue to lead this mission? I think this is the whole objective of this reflection for us in Caritas Asia to really focus on trying to highlight the good practices, and we will be sharing more about it at the later part of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Edu. Yes, as you rightly mentioned, I think, as you refer to Cardinal Tagle and also sharing, it was not just a walk. I think it's also a mission for us. It's a ministry. So how we live up to our ministry is very important. So thank you to all the three panel speakers sharing of your how to do our vision into our actions by showing love creatively to those people affected. So we will proceed into the second questions. Before we proceed into the second questions, the audience, if you have any questions, I would like to request you to post it on the chat box so that we will pass it on to the panel speakers spontaneously. So we'd like to go to the second questions for the panel speakers. So again, in his Holy Week, Holy Father message, he stressed again to make a gesture of tenderness towards those who are suffering from this pandemic. So this is very much action-oriented, what I would say, because why COVID frees down the whole world, including most of the needed services in humanitarian, business, and everywhere. And also, as Ranjan mentioned early in the very first response, Caritas is reaching out. We are not stopping. Almost all 160 Caritas member organizations are responding to this COVID. We are not stopping. We are not refraining ourselves, reaching out to the people who are needed. So we'd like to hear the more practical experiences of how Caritas extended its services to the most vulnerable people during this lockdown, which is the gesture of tenderness toward these people suffering. In the question number one, we captured somewhat, but I think I would like to sort of reiterate it again so that there will be some more practical experience we can hear from the speakers. So I would like to invite Ranjan to share Caritas Bangladesh experience. How do you really reach out to the most vulnerable during this lockdown?
Richard, may I have screen sharing?
Please, Ari, can you help share the screen, please?
Ari, it is done.
Yes, I'm here.
I want to have screen sharing.
Sorry, doctor, there was a bit of technical problem. Can you repeat your request? Okay.
Screen sharing, okay? It is done. Abu.
Oops.
CI. किसका रहा है? इधर इधर do you see the screen, the Christian?
We can see it. We can see it, Ranjan.
Okay.
Yes.
I will very precisely share my portion. So
Yes.
I want to share with you 4 or 5 slides, very briefly. So who all were impacted high in Bangladesh? In the urban area, the construction workers, day laborers, domestic workers, lower and medium level ready-made garments workers, hairdressers, street vendors, cobblers, rickshaw pullers, Uber and taxi drivers, restaurant workers, and beauty parlor workers, and many other people. And in the rural area, of course, the farmers, the marginal farmers, the agricultural laborers, and some brokers who used to buy the agricultural products and send to the cities. এইগুলো বাদ যায় কেমনে? So then কোনটা? এটা এটা না না আমি করতে চাচ্ছি তো পরেরটা যাবো কেমনে? So then this goes I know. Then what were the impacts? Major impacts. So what we have seen, we had 3 rapid studies. 2 were conducted by our Caritas Development Institute, and 1 was conducted by our Caritas Asia Regional Office. So we have seen from the study that stopped or decreased income. We have seen that in the urban area, 89%, and in the rural area, 79% people lost their income. And unemployment, we have seen that 78%, 78.8% became unemployed in the country. So food insecurity was a big impact, and people were not aware about this COVID situation. And then what strategies we took from Caritas Bangladesh. So before the lockdown situation, we started our awareness raising programs. Those were verbal, through posters, materials, messaging, then messaging through loudspeaker, supplying sanitizers, soaps, setting water points before the lockdown. And after when the lockdown was continuing, that time we continued messages of preventing COVID in the fields through our Caritas volunteers through messaging. So so what we did during this disappointment situation, we had our consultation with the funding partners of ongoing projects, exploring for local and abroad funding support, and distribution, cash distribution and food distribution by staff and local volunteers. পুরা হচ্ছে না। পুরো আসতেছে না। হ্যাঁ, okay, here I'm showing the major inputs cash services we provided. You will see the slide that we arranged about euro 585,000 euro from our ongoing programs, and we arranged 470,000 euros from external resources, from our funding partners, from the contribution of our staff, for the contribution of our volunteers. So we provided cash support to 52,922 families, and the package was ranging from 1,000 to 2,500 each package. So 52,992 families have been supported till now. And also we provided hygiene kits, hand wash points, soap, sanitizers, etc. So these were the inputs we provided to the people. So here I want to share with you our some challenges. So in the challenges, number one, all colleagues and people were worried of new situation. Number two, serving despite of strong mobility obstructions. There were strong obstructions of mobility. Still, our people moved ahead. There was a frustration among mass people. And number four, disappointment among Caritas Bangladesh colleagues realizing the scarcity of funding. So what were our best practice? Consultation with our funding partners, CIMOs. So we had our online meetings and we got enough support from CIMOs. And electronic cash transfer, as mobility was a problem, so the electronic cash transfer was very effective. It was very sharp, accurate, and free from corruption. The last best practice is community volunteers. It was a effective way of providing supports. So here are some photographs. A disabled boy, he has got support. Here, our one worker, he is providing cash support. And here are some support giving photographs and awareness raising. You see the mobile set, how we transferred cash from mobile. Colleagues, they are sanitizing each other. The lady, she has got food support. So thank you, Dr. Richard.
Thank you, Rajan. Thank you for sharing Caritas
Dr.
Bangladesh.
Richard, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your experience of how you reach out to the people in the most difficult situation. And then it is very remarkable that you reach out to more than 52,000 family members in this short time, I think, with this difficult situation. So Caritas Bangladesh did a very marvelous job. So I would like to invite Father Edu to share the Caritas Philippine experiences as well. Father Edu, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Richard. I'd like to start off with a quotation from Cardinal Chito Tagle saying that for us to counter this pandemic, we need to spread a new kind of virus. And to face this global emergency, he was saying that we need to spread the pandemic of hope, caring, and compassion, and love, of course, the meaning of Caritas. But how do we actually do that? Given the constraints and the limitations, actually, we do not have funding partners. We know that there's available fund for COVID response, but we give way to Australia, to Africa and Middle East. They are more in need than us. So in this kind of situation, what do we do? I think in sharing the experience of the Philippines, I would like to have my slides. If that's not available, I can continue on, but I'd like to show pictures because okay, thank you, Ari. Okay. We kind of come up with this kind of approach. This is a kind of locally led humanitarian response, particularly for COVID, given the limitation in terms of mobility, in terms of lack of funding, in terms of scope. So we need to invent something. And this idea of locally led action crops up from a group that, who really was thinking of the idea that they were trying to reach out to the most needy in their neighborhood. They were asking the question, why can't we share kindness to our neighbors that are most in need? So they started to do it on their own, the locally led response. And it worked, actually. If we read the Bible, the multiplication of bread, I think it's somewhat similar to that. That when we share what we have gathered is more than sufficient for all. I think that's a kind of idea. And this small initiative, we try to adapt this strategy of sharing the kindness and replicate it to different dioceses, different parishes, different religious houses. As Cardinal Catagli was saying, we need to spread this pandemic of caring and compassion, spread the spirit of kindness. And slowly we are able to devise some kind of mechanism on how to do it, as you see on the screen, kind of guidelines on how to do it. And our donors are coming from the local source. And they do their own fundraising. This one, as you see, is being done in a parish in somewhere in Manila. And next slide, please, Ari. And we choose the beneficiaries we identify the poorest members, the single parent, the elderly, those who are jobless. And we try to do this decentralized humanitarian response. This picture here is really interesting. As you see, what you see in the front is a bishop, actually, and he's into baking bread. So what he did is he did it every day, bake bread for the beneficiaries, for the poorest, and then donations just came pouring in because people are just really very inspired by what he's doing. But and people also come to the station to get what they need, and people can also share things that they want to share, the kindness that they want to share. So it's a kind of giving and receiving in that aspect. There are those who cannot really go to the store or to the kindness station. So we have volunteers to identify the most in need in the community. So it's really community led. They know who are the most in need, and they bring the items or that they were able to fundraise or to come up with. And we also expanded the kindness station to kindness store. And how to do that? We try to revive the economy and provide income to the farmers. They have their agricultural produce, but they cannot. The market is closed. So what do we do? What do they do with the vegetables and all? So what we did in many of the stations, instead of just a station where they can bring and get something, we bought the produce of the farmers and sell it at a discounted rate. That way, we provided income for the farmers. At the same time, we have something to give to people, to sell to people at a discounted price. So that's how the kindness store and the kindness station operates. There are lots of stories, but we have no time. So we go to the next slides, Ari. So we try to infect other communities, other dioceses, and in the end, we were able to sell this idea to 67 of our 85 dioceses. So most of the dioceses have this some kind of kindness station or kindness store. We all, Caritas Manila, by the way, also have this cash giving or cash voucher, and because Caritas Manila actually is the most affected, as Dr. Richard mentioned. So we Caritas Manila by itself was able to raise more than $1 billion in terms of peso, in terms of donations, and they were able to also operate by doing this kind of spirit of sharing this kindness. And we receive also supplementary support from our later on, and we are to Caritas Spain. I've seen the names of Eleanor, they are here. But the small funding support at the end, because most of the dioceses are saying we do not have money anymore, so we need some support. But that's at the end of the 3-month operation that we have this kind of store. And so I think in trying to respond to the challenge of Pope Francis, how to reach out and be creative in loving, in showing love, making a gesture of tenderness for those who suffer. I think this is one very good way of doing it. It's not us in the national office doing it, but the communities, the dioceses, the parishes, the religious communities doing it, leading the way for community-led humanitarian response. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Edu. Thank you for sharing this very inspiring, how the local community has been shared the kindness, and then how do you raise funds effectively in this COVID response. So I would like to invite Susanna to share from the 2-country experience, but do you want to share any of the global experience what you encounter, how the Caritas members are showing their gesture of tenderness through the practical actions? Susanna, can you please share?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Richard. Actually, as I was mentioning in my first question as well, we have seen our Caritas is responding really with great creativity. Maybe some of the in your question you're asking, how are we able to reach? How are we able to reach to the most in need? One of the biggest things was that our Caritas has rediscovered a new clientele, if you want, and this was as Father Edu and Rosario was sharing earlier, were those new poor, those people that for the first time in their life, they lost their sustenance. They never were in a situation of such a great vulnerability. And those are the people that came to us, or we reach out to them, thanks to our community or grassroots networks. And we were able to extend a helping hand to those families, to those individuals that found themselves for the first time in this situation. And it wasn't just providing them with food, it was also with providing them with a support through assuring them that they're not alone, that we are there to support, that we are there together to overcome this crisis. And this wasn't just let's say, in the developing countries. We encounter in our Caritases, for the first time, many of them had to mount large, call it humanitarian responses in well-developed countries. So just to mention, Caritas Italiana has seen an increase of 45% in 3 months of the people that they serve. Call it those, the COVID poor, the new COVID poor families that they had to support. The same thing also in Spain and in other developing countries as well. And what was really remarkable is that Caritas has been able to do so, not by counting on, let's call it, international support that was coming, but really building on the experience that was shared by my other 2 panelists, by strengthening this local solidarity, encouraging neighbors to support. But what it is really interesting, and something that we need to learn even more and continue to build upon, was linking this community-led response with those private entities, private businesses that are part of this community, and together looking in terms of how can we provide the best response. We know for years, I mean, in Caritas Internationalis alone, within our humanitarian committees, etc., you know that we have been discussing, oh, we are seeing a decrease in funds from the traditional way of working, where the richer members were supporting the others. This model is something that during this COVID, which is global response, has exacerbated it even more, and is challenging us. And actually, this is an opportunity for us as well to start thinking in terms of how can we really build more locally, not only the ability of our members, but as part of the local community, how we can build a stronger local responses, be it in emergencies, be it in development. This to complement, obviously, the important aspect of global solidarity that within our network is one of the DNA as well. But looking at working differently, building on these new local opportunities as well. And this is, I think, one of the big lessons as well that we need to unwrap even more in thinking in terms of what is our future after this crisis as well. As Aloysius was mentioning, it's a new time. It's a new time also for us to think differently and more innovatively as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. So as you share, I think it is very interesting. Even the global North developed countries are having a lot of challenges in this pandemic. So it's very remarkable to hear that local solidarity or the togetherness of the local communities to respond to the situation is very remarkable, especially as you said, I think it's a new ways of walking or new ways of living and new opportunity as well. So a new situation that we are going into. After that, I think I would like to move to another topic, because as Rajan earlier shared in his very early questions, he mentioned about the volunteers who are one of the very key responders to this situation. So my next question goes to Father Edus and also Rajan. So in your Bangladesh and the Philippine experiences, how do the volunteers offer their services to the church and to the Caritas COVID respond to the situation? What did motivate them to be part of this very noble mission? Because it is a very frightening situation, but in the very early phase, they really daily go as a volunteer to serve and work in the situation. So I would invite Father Ed to start sharing your experiences.
Okay, I think I can go ahead without pictures, but I think it would be good if we can have the slide, Ari.
Yeah, good.
To show the faces of our heroes. Today it's not that, Ari. Today is humanitarian day, our humanitarian day, and we give honor to our real life heroes, and they are our volunteers. I've been in Caritas Philippines for 10 years, and one of the important lessons that I learned is that our volunteers are really the soul of the work that we do. and we cannot do the things that we do without them really being committed doing the work. Even the poor people, and this is really inspiring. That poverty, even people who are poor can still be able to give something of themselves, like Josephine before the first one, Ari, before that, like Josephine. Okay, and she's featured in our website as to honor as one of our local heroes as we celebrate this day. The other picture on the right, I saw this during the Taal volcanic eruption, and I personally very touched by this. And my realization is that we have our formally acknowledged volunteers like Josephine, but there are like this picture that we have here, the unacknowledged but real life heroes. We do not know their names, but they care. They volunteer to help because they simply care, and they are the family members and the relatives. And I think in many of these emergencies and even in COVID response, we need to tap family members and relatives to become our partners in our humanitarian response, because they are the natural volunteers. They help for the simple reason that they care. And we also try this strategy, volunteer strategy, mobilizing the relatives and the family members in our Adapt a Family program. So next slide, please. In those cases, we try to ask the families to adapt their relatives so that they can be supported with whatever they need using the family's own resources. And with Dr. Richard's question, that what motivate them to do that, our volunteers. And we have this from our presentation in our website, from the videos that we show in honor of them. It's fun to be a volunteer. They say that we are happy to serve. It's fun because they have this kind of sense of fulfillment, even though the monetary reward is not really that much, particularly for our staff. But this kind of but this is also part of the spirituality, as we mentioned earlier, that we have this kind of sense of fulfillment because we know and we are convinced that we are fulfilling our mission. So having this sense of mission is one important motivation. As we say it always in Caritas Philippines, we are faith-based and love-driven. So it's not only from the humanitarian, from the human perspective, but it's a divine calling, divine mandate. Next slide, please, Ari. But the question actually is how to sustain the energy, and for this we need specific skills and strategy to do that. And it's good that we are in Caritas Asia. We have this continuing training for EU pitch, and I think Abba is also here in this webinar. He can also share something, because we know that we have this science and technology for volunteer mobilization and management. So it doesn't remain just as a kind of spontaneous action. It needs to become programmatic, and this is kind of technology of doing it, and we are good at doing that in Caritas. I think that's all that I can share for this part. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Edu. So it's very good that how you motivate your volunteers, make them feel that this is a sense of fulfillment and also it's a divine calling. So the volunteer spirit has been very important, and you also focus about the maintenance of the volunteer, which is important. So Rajan, can you share your Caritas Bangladesh experience, how the volunteers are contributing to your COVID response?
Thank you, Dr. Richard. First, who all are the volunteers we consider? Whenever we start working in Caritas Bangladesh in a new place, what we do, we identify the people who can become the development allies, friend of development, the school teachers, the local leaders, the public representatives. So we identify them, enlist them, and we organize training for them. So they are the volunteers of Caritas. They are the allies of development. Secondly, Caritas form and nurture many credit union groups. And there are hundreds of members in the credit union groups. And there are leaders. So these leaders and members, they are also trained. And in emergency period, they work as a volunteer. And also under our disaster risk reduction projects, there are Upazila Disaster Management Committee members. There are Union Disaster Committee members who all are trained to face the disasters. Whatever there are any disasters, these volunteers come forward to help the people. And also we have more than 1,000 schools, and there are many teachers. They also work as volunteer during the disaster situation. So all these people, they were engaged in this COVID crisis. So what motivated them to come forward? This is the subject of the sharing. Actually, three things worked in them. Number one, whenever they became volunteer, time to time they got training from Caritas, and they were inspired to help the people in disaster situation. So this training worked in them. Secondly, there was a peace project under the banner of Caritas Asia, and it was funded by Caritas Austria. And there was a big focus of volunteers development. And we conducted a number of training for the volunteers, the key volunteers. And these messages were passed to the dioceses and parishes. So from the volunteers from parish and diocese, they also participated. And these training courses, this motivated our volunteers. And number three, we Caritas Bangladesh are nowadays very much convinced that volunteers can serve a lot during disaster situation. So that's why our volunteer management policy, it was drafted, and recently we had our general body meeting. It was placed and it was approved by our general body. So now we have a volunteer management policy also for Caritas Bangladesh. And all these experiences are covered or are mentioned in our volunteer management policy. So I think in short, the motivation, the training, and also religious teachings, those helped the volunteers to come forward to work with devotion for the COVID impacted people. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajan. Thank you for sharing. It's very good to hear that the community group which are trained on credit union groups becomes a volunteer, and then Caritas Bangladesh has very good systems of managing through even volunteer management policies in hand. So it's very professional in a way that you are managing. So I think we have some questions coming from on the floor. I think I would like to share some questions after, but I would like to go, before going to the questions from the audience, I would like to go to the final questions. The final question that I would like to share with the panel speaker is the localization. Localization, COVID, humanitarian response is a very intertwining situation. So for the localization is one of the most discussed topics in this pandemic. So then what is the Caritas stand in this localization agenda? I think the panel speaker have a lot of experience, but I would like to invite Susanna to open the floor of the discussion with what is Caritas stand in the localization agenda? Susanna, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I think this is a really good question also for our audience to pitch in and provide their feedbacks and their comments as well. This has been really and authentically the first properly localized, global localized, I mean, it sounds a bit like almost as an oxymoron, localized response where local actors, and as we were mentioning, local communities have been really the first responders. Because what also Father Edu was mentioning through when he was talking about the real life heroes, these are the communities. Many of those, I mean, if we are looking from the Caritas perspective, they are coming and they are being organized around our parish Caritases, which are the heart and the souls, and those the closest to the communities we serve, the closest to the issues and the problems and the needs that we are trying to address. And I think as we are talking about the localization, and I'm not going to open the whole debate around what is local or what it is not local, but as you know, I mean, we have been discussing amply and having to justify if Caritas is a local organization, which seems absurd, but still some have issues around it. What we really need to think as we are thinking about moving forward with localization, which is one of the greatest commitment that Caritas as a confederation has taken also during, reinstated it actually, during the World Humanitarian Summit, because localization is the DNA, the heart and the soul, the bread and butter of Caritas, is how can we trickle down now what has been the investment at the level of the national Caritas and diocesan Caritas, really down to the grassroots, really down to the parish Caritases themselves, who are, when we're thinking about local responders, they are the ones that we need now to see how we can better mobilize and engage them. Just as a very quick input on a side of Caritas Internationalis, as we were developing guidelines and setting up the COVID response fund, one of the areas that we have been really paying particular attention is how to assure that that the response, particularly down at the parish level as well, and so with an increased number of volunteers or new volunteers that have joined us, because they are seeing Caritas as a very reputable, action-oriented organization in terms of giving their time or providing support, etc. Even non-Catholics or Christians have joined Caritas's work. How can we assure that the capacities and also some of the standards that we are really strongly pushing for, such as, for example, in safeguarding the code of conduct, etc., and other accountability requirements are also deeply embedded in at the parish level and in the way that we engage the local communities in the work of a parish Caritas to serve those most in need. So again, identifying another area where we need to reflect and think and come up with practical solutions in terms of how our commitment to support localization should now be trickled even further down at the level of the communities at the grassroots level as well. And we have seen, I mean, really some huge progresses in this area, also from the request that as Caritas Internationalis we are receiving, and thanks to the support of our member organizations, being able also to provide in terms of technical support and assistance and accompaniment on the ground and in a tailored fashion in the different country context that we respond. I'll stop here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susanna. So now I'd like to thank you so much for all the panelists. I think you have answered very explicitly and very richly through this past 6 months period, how we have been responding to this COVID situation. So I think the speakers are speaking a lot, and I would like to give you some breaks of thinking. So I would like to give a chance to the audience. So based on the 3 speakers sharing the COVID response from different perspectives, how different country level response and how they have been motivating and availing the volunteers in this response, how they are having the very rapid responders, and also how does it link this COVID response to the global localization agenda, in which very uniquely, I think, localization is the DNA of the Caritas Confederation members. So the floor is open to the audience. If you have any question from the audience, we would like to channel it to the panel speakers so that we will be coming back to you with appropriate questions. Any questions from the audience? I received 2 questions which I see on the chat box that they are responding. So one question that comes from the audience is, how do we do the mental health support in this COVID response? I think this is one question come forward. Another question is, how do we do the electronic cash transfer, I think, which is very unique to Caritas Bangladesh response. So we received two questions from the audience at this point in time. I think they have been responding through the chat box, I think, has been reached. So I would like to open the floor to the audience, especially around the localizations. Is there anything that you would like to know more from the speakers or panelists?
Dr. Richard, about the electronic cash transfer, I want to say a few words.
Yes.
In the city areas, most of the people, they have a mobile phone and they have a Bikash number. So for the urban slum people, those who all are impacted, their money can be transferred by electronic transfer. In the village level also, many villagers, many marginal and poor families, they have telephone, mobile phone. So those who have phone, they may get the transfer through phone. But the most needy people, those who don't have the mobile phone, in that case, we handed over cash to them. So there are options, not only cash transfer, electronic cash transfer, also real cash transfer. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajan. Thank you for answering that question come from the floor. Another questions come from the floor is, now we have been responding to this COVID response up to this point. But the question is, on the challenges of this COVID response, especially how can we sustain our COVID response to this situation, because this is a very long journey that we have to walk. No? So I would like to put that questions on the table of the panelists. So Susanna, Dr. Father Edu, and also Rajan, who want to answer first. In this very difficult situation, challenging situation, how do we sustain our COVID response?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dr. Richard,
Yes.
recently our president of Caritas Bangladesh, he has sent us a message. The message is that COVID will continue. It will not be stopped within 1 or 2 or 3 months. So this is the reality. So in this situation, he has requested Caritas Bangladesh directors that to talk with the people, to motivate the people to resist it, to get prepared, to cope up with the situation. And in reality, in Bangladesh, you know, it is a very overpopulated country. People are not at home now. They have come out. They have joined their work, but they are taking measures using mask, social distancing. So now people are ready to accept it. And people know that it will sustain. So we are also resistance to that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ranjan. Yes, Susanna, please.
Shall I further do just very quickly? Just building up on what Ranjan just said, I think it's yes, looking at COVID as a health emergency and pandemic, and thinking in terms of how we can adapt the way that we provide our programs and services will remain definitely a fixture for the time being. But big challenges also for us, it is how can we rebuild livelihoods? How can we use this again as an opportunity to look at supporting some of those democratic processes and changes that are needed in order to create, let's put it easily, better societies. And this is a big part of the localization agenda that we are ourselves are promoting as well. Some of the experiences that are coming, I was just reflecting as we were talking, is how differently Caritas is, some of our Caritas has been responding during the COVID emergency, thinking just from the use of the CRF, so the Caritas Response Fund resources as well. And it's very interesting what Caritas Honduras is doing and mobilizing volunteers, primarily at looking, doing, they call it citizen monitoring over the way that the government is distributing humanitarian resources. And so primarily engaging communities just to assure that the government is not politicizing the delivery of humanitarian assistance, but assuring that the support goes to those that are most in need as well. And this is just one of the small examples of how this pandemic is being used also to affect some positive changes way beyond strengthening the health systems or looking at protect, obviously what it is, you know, protecting and preserving lives and limiting the risk of contagion. But it is the feeling is that there is some new energy that is coming out of this pandemic, and something that as Caritas we need to explore and use at its best.
I have two additional points, if I may, Dr. Richard.
Yes, what I do.
In addition to what Ranjan and Susanna already said, I need to emphasize two other points. One is, in this COVID pandemic, we need to, I keep on saying this because I'm very passionate about this issue. We need to expand the narrative to see that COVID pandemic is not only an issue of health and economics. Pandemic is caused primarily by the destruction of the ecosystem, particularly the habitat, the threatened habitat. So I think with Pope Francis Laudato Si, I think that the ecological conversion, we need to also link this pandemic to that campaign, how to care for our common home, because otherwise we will be really responding to this crisis, and then there will be another one. Because I mean, we need to go right to the root cause of the pandemic, and we need to expand the narrative. It's beyond health. It's not only economics. It's not only health. Secondly, in pandemic, we are challenged to really pin down, and prioritize the basic. And what is it? Food. The poor people are very much affected because they have no adequate resources to sustain basic necessity. And that's why we are on the right track in Caritas Asia, because part of our program is really for this food security, right to food campaign and all. I think this is something that we need to really strengthen, because we can do away with all the malls, travels, leisure, and everything, but without food, we will die. And I think when we speak of the welfare and of the poor, I think we need to make sure that we really work to ensure food security for our programs.
Thank you for that, Andrew. I think in terms of sustainability, we have to look at the bigger picture. Of course, as Father Andrew mentioned, I think the environmental things, and then Pope Francis has been warning us ahead of time that if we keep harming our Mother Earth, I think we will be paying back, and now I think that pandemic is not happening. And also, as Susanna mentioned, we have to look beyond the current health crisis perspective that we're looking. It's a multifaceted. So as a way, we try to put into part of the localization context how we see this pandemic response. And then when Ranjan mentioned about how Caritas Bangladesh in this very difficult situation has been trying to keep maintaining the services to the people. So having aware of the time, and also having time needs to sort of wrap up as well. So I think I would like to send another questions to the panelists, which come from the floor, is the sort of the discriminations and sort of the gender-based violence situation in this pandemic situation. So how would you like to respond? The question is how we can address which gender-based violence is very common in this COVID response lockdown period. So what should we do on it? So I would like to have a last kind of comments, last and very short and sweet comments from the panelists before I hand it over to Dr. Alos for the closing session. May I ask Susanna to start?
I was hoping that one of my other male colleagues will start answering this question. So very briefly, it is a big concern. It has been gender, and gender-based violence is one of the top priorities, strategic priorities for the work of Caritas Internationalis and its member organization. And as Father Lalit rightly noticed, this situation of forced lockdown with the additional pressure of loss of income and uncertainties is putting again, is getting a female face of this, of the COVID response, because women tend to be the primary victims in this situation, those that are being mostly exposed to frustrations and yes, and the consequences of this uncertainty as well. I think as Caritas Internationalis, we need to invest more. I think there is still a lot of misconception in terms of what does it mean? We are talking today, slightly opening the discussion, also increasing the participation, increasing a role, a leadership role for women within the Caritas organization as well. I'm expanding the discussion more to the gender. So a topic for us really to to invest more. I would also encourage all of you who haven't read, there is Care International at the beginning of the pandemic did a very good report, which was a study in terms of the position of women, which is saying that in this pandemic, women are caring, allow me, and I'm a woman, so this is why I hope that my male colleagues will start beginning, are the ones actually who are carrying the largest part of the work. They are the first provider, those that are expected to take care of the elderly, of the households, of children, of sick, and everyone, and at the same time also generate an income as well. So let's use this again as an opportunity this time to reflect how can we better address this issue within our confederation and put this highly on the top of our work as well.
Thank you, Susanna. Father Edus and Rajan, would you like to add
Yes,
more? Short and sweet,
yeah.
please.
We said, actually, this gender-based violation, safeguarding, child protection, these are very, very important issues for all the member organization of CI nowadays. And we were sufferer. 1 year ago, we were sufferer. And we have taken many learnings from there. Sufferer in the sense that from the Africa incident, we were affected. So in the meantime, we have had our safeguarding policy. We have set up many systems for ensuring the safeguarding. And before every intervention, we give special orientation to the staff. Recently, we have got an award from Start Fund for the flood 2020. So our team has been working for the flood victims. Before going to the field, there was a thorough orientation and there was detailed discussion on safeguarding issues, child protection issues, and gender-based issues. So the management of Caritas Bangladesh, and I believe the other members of Caritas are very much aware and very much careful on safeguarding issues, like us.
Thank you. Father Edu.
Our safeguarding staff are here with me. I think they can provide a better answer to this question. But
Okay.
generally, I think in all the programs that we do in Caritas, I think this issue of gender violence, safeguarding, they are all incorporated. And it's just that during this COVID, I think this is something that we need to explore because women are more exposed to greater vulnerabilities. And that's something that we need to look into. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Edu, making it very quick and sweet. So yes, you rightly speak. I think there are experts in this area, so we can rely on more. So thank you for this panel sessions. Rajan, Father Edu, and Susanna, you contribute quite a lot and you answer all the questions beautifully. So thank you so much for this panel session. So as the closing sessions, I would like to hand it over this conclusion and closing sessions to Dr. Benedict Rosario. Before hand it over to Dr. Alos for this conclusion and closing, I would like to thank again to Cardinal Tagle for sending his video message and also Aloysius John to opening the session with your institutional perspective, and also to the three speakers, Susanna, Father Edus, and Ranjan, to share your wealth of experience in this very short time. We can talk the whole day if you were to talk, but being the time limited, and we have to really kind of please ourselves with this 1 hour something of sharing. So I would like to invite Dr. Alos to conclude and close this session with your closing remarks. Dr. Alos, the floor is yours. Hello.
We cannot hear you, Dr. Alo.
Dr. Alo is
Can you hear me?
Dr. Alos?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Oh, it's okay.
Okay.
It's okay.
Thank you, Dr. Richard, for your wonderful facilitation. Hello, everyone, and warm greetings from Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh. Today, I am very pleased to be with you in this important webinar for our Caritas Asia region. I am also equally pleased to be able to hear the presentation of our esteemed speakers who have just affirmed that the works we do during this time of the pandemic is not really just a mere humanitarian response, but also, and even more importantly, so a mission for our Caritas family to further strengthen our witnessing of the Word of God. Caritas Asia is very honored and very grateful that our president, His Eminence Luis Antonio Cardinal Tagle, and our Secretary General, Mr. Alicia John, have both inspired us with their assuring words in this webinar. Of course, we also feel very honored and grateful to our panelists, Mr. Ranjan Francis Rosario, the incoming Executive Director of Caritas Bangladesh, Father Edwin Garigues, the outgoing Executive Secretary of Caritas Philippines, and Ms. Susan Tamak, the Emergency Head of Caritas Internationalis, for giving us vivid experiences and testimonies of how our Caritas members are responding to putting into action the encouraging words of Pope Francis of loving creatively, especially now that the COVID-19 pandemic has affected most of humanity. In this unprecedented global health crisis, Holy Father Pope Francis challenges us, everyone, to ban indifference, self-centeredness, division, and forgetfulness through our creative love and service. I sincerely express our deepest gratitude to all our speakers, and I certainly will not miss to also convey our sincerest gratitude to Dr. Richard Wynne, Director of KMSS Caritas Myanmar, for moderating our webinar today. He has guided us through the sessions of the webinar with his excellent and professional facilitation skills. So we are very and really grateful to him. You have heard from our speakers and panelists today that despite the hardships, the uncertainties, and miseries that COVID has brought upon us, we as Caritas have made this crisis to be a particular time to build a civilization of love and make a gesture of tremendous towards those who suffer. Their presentation have given us a platform to reflect on the spirituality of our Caritas response to COVID-19. They have reminded us that our works, no matter how difficult they are always deeply rooted on our values that very much resonate the Catholic social and moral teaching. On this day, we are celebrating the World Humanitarian Day. It is crucial that we remind ourselves that COVID-19 response is not just simply responding to those in need, but also fulfilling our mission to spread love and witness the gospel. And so we commemorate the World Humanitarian Day today. Let us also bear in mind that without God's love made into flesh by Jesus Christ, our Caritas family would not have been able to fully realize what it really means to help humanity. Through this webinar, we have also been given an opportunity to learn and share with one another our good practices, these experiences, and promising opportunities in responding to COVID-19. We have heard Father Edu from the Philippines, Ranjan Rosario from Bangladesh, and also Susan from Caritas Internationalized, that how we have been spreading and showing our love to the COVID-19 affected people. Of course, we have also been made more aware about the challenges that we continue to face and the possible ways on how we can mitigate them. We all know that every pandemic brings both challenges and opportunities. We are to reflect more on opportunities so that we can be more effective. Caritas Bangladesh, Caritas Philippines, and Caritas Internationalists have given us concrete actions and experience within our Caritas Confederation, in which we have put our values into action. You may have also noted that in this webinar, we have looked into how localization plays an important role, an important part in our response to the pandemic. Perhaps most of you, if not all, may recall that our Caritas Asia region has now highlighted localization on our strategic priorities. Ever since we talked about it during our last regional partners meeting, which we also followed up with a special regional forum on localization and safeguarding in Yangon this year in January. We know that all of our humanitarian response to COVID-19 require the action and active involvement of our local leaders, communities, and individuals. So we wanted to also highlight in this webinar how localization has really played an important role during this crisis. I already mentioned in one of our regional commission meetings to Father Edu that I was really touched and impressed by the kindness centers they have been open and serving through with the local support. It is of the essence to our Caritas family to have this platform where we can openly discuss, albeit on a very limited time, about the works we do, not only because we wanted to have an opportunity to reflect the spirituality of our action, but also because we wanted to prepare for the way forward. In this time, when our old normal has been replaced by the new normal. It is important that our Caritas Confederation keeps abreast of the changing situation of our societies and be ready to face the new challenges evolving from the pandemic, while also continuously finding new and innovative ways of maximizing and making better use of our existing and developing opportunities. This webinar will certainly help us in the crafting of our next regional strategic plan. We have recorded the proceedings of the webinar so that we would be able to use the richness of our conversation when we start the process of our next strategic plan. Maybe you are aware, I presume, that our current regional strategic plan is supposed to end this year, but we have decided to extend it for another year, obviously, because of the pandemic. Before ending, I wish to express our profound gratitude to all of you for your active participation in this webinar. Your interaction and contribution in this webinar are greatly appreciated. All the points and the inputs you shared in this webinar will be considered in our future planning. So you can rest assured that your contribution will be very helpful in shaping the future direction of our region. I would also like to thank Juanes Boscaro of Caritas Indonesia and Mira of Caritas Internationalis who help us in preparing this webinar. Also to the other Caritas Asia regional communication team members, Jing Henderson of Caritas Philippines, Kamra Chaudhry of Caritas Pakistan, Father John Mare of Caritas Thailand, Emmanuel and Shiba Mary of Caritas Bangladesh, Onita of Caritas Singapore, and Patrick of Caritas India. All of you help us shaping the idea of the webinar. Thank you very, very, very much. Of course, I would not miss thanking as well our colleagues in Caritas Asia, Jar, Adi, Sam, for their works on this seminar. Ari has been very instrumental in ensuring the realization of this webinar. And so, we especially underscore our appreciation to him for this work. Thank you very much. To all of you, may God bless us.
Thank you very much.
Carlos, thank you for your very comprehensive, inspiring, and very deep as well as very motivational or conclusion and closing remark. So I don't need to repeat anything. Dr. Carlos, thanks everybody. So thank you so much everybody who make this happen through your participation, through your sharing, and through all the administrative and logistical support to make this happen. So with this, I don't do any further ado. So with this conclusion and closing remark of Dr. Carlos, I will close this webinar sessions. So as Dr. Carlos said, God bless you all. Let's keep serving the people with all our heart. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone,
Thank
can you
you.
take a photo please? Can you turn on your video?
Okay, that is a video session. Please turn all your screen so that your beautiful picture will be in our record. No, thank you. Turn on your video, please.
Big smiles, 1, 2.
Bye.
Okay, I need another one because there are so many pages for this. Keep smiling everyone.
Yes.
One more time, everyone, big smiles, 1, 2. One more time, 1, 2. There's still quite a lot of you who don't have your videos on. So I'm going to put some funny picture there if you don't turn it on. Thank you so much, everyone. I think I got it. Yeah.
You got all the picture?
Thank you
I think
very much.
so,
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, great, great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you. See you again sometime in future in person.
Yes, hopefully soon. Thank you very much.
Yeah, happy Humanitarian Day.
Happy Humanitarian Day. Same to you. Happy Humanitarian Day next week. Yes. John. Nice to see you.
Yeah, sorry, it's been a long time.
Oh, yes.
But it's great to talk to you again.
Yes, so nice to meet you again. So that virtual meeting also worked for us as well, John.